Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike Green. I'm one of the owners of 1A Auto. I want to help you save time and money repairing and maintaining your vehicle. I'm going to use my 20+ years experience restoring and repairing cars and trucks like this to show you the correct way to install parts from 1AAuto.com. The right parts installed correctly. That's going to save you time and money. Thank you and enjoy the video.
This video is part 1 of a 2-part series replacing the ball joint in this 97 Expedition. In this video we basically detail removing the old ball joint, and this is the same for all these Expeditions, F150s, Explorers, a whole bunch of the Ford trucks and SUVs from this era. Here's a list of the tools that we use on the Expedition. If you're doing a vehicle different from the Expedition, some of these sizes may differ. You will need heavy-duty tools. You're not going to want to try this with the 20-piece set Uncle Joe gave you for Christmas. This is heavy work, and you'll need jack and jack stands, metric sockets 13 to 27 millimeters, standard sockets 1/2 inch to 7/8. You'll need a 35 millimeter socket, a 12.13 millimeter socket, ratchets, extensions, and a breaker bar or pipe, because you will need to get some leverage on some of those bigger bolts and things. Pliers, hammer, a heavy punch, ball joint removal tool, a ball joint press, large flat blade screwdriver, and a paint marker or old can of spray paint. The ball joint removal tool I'd recommend if you're going to be doing a lot of your own work. It's a pretty affordable tool to go out and get. Ball joint press might be something that you want to borrow. Okay, so obviously you're going to start by removing your cap. Now if you don't have the benefit of air tools, what you'll want to do is start with your wheel on the ground. And with your wheel on the ground, there's probably 3 things you're going to want to do. Loosen your lug nuts. Then there's a 35 millimeter bolt in the center that holds the axle into the hub. You're going to want to take the cotter pin and the cover off of that and loosen that 35 millimeter bolt. And also go underneath, and there are 7 13 millimeter 12-point bolts that hold your axle to your front drive, and you'll want to just loosen those 7 bolts. Much easier to loosen all these bolts with your tire on the ground held in place if you don't have all the tools that I have access to.
Okay, so you're going to want to loosen up your torsion bar. Your torsion bar is actually your spring. This is what supports the vehicle. Okay, I'm just going to take a little silver spray paint. Okay, that way when I back that bolt out, I'll know that where it originally was.
Using an 18 millimeter socket and a ratchet, I'm going to loosen the torsion bar tension nut or bolt, and you can basically pull it all the way out and then just turn it back in a few turns. You just want to loosen it up and take as much tension off the torsion bars as you can, and you can see as I'm done, you can see where there's no paint on the threads that is how far you would want to retighten it.
Okay, now we're going to undo our tie rod end here.
Okay, and I'm just going to speed it up here. The cotter pin's very rusty, so first I break it with the pliers, then I use a hammer and punch, and just kind of keep working and breaking small pieces off until I can drive it through and out of the tie rod end. Okay, now I'm pounding a 21 millimeter socket onto that nut because it was quite rusty. I just want to make sure I get a socket that gets a good grip on it.
Okay, I've got a bar on here. Put a piece of pipe on it for some more leverage. Luckily it comes apart.
And just fast forward here as I switch over to a ratchet and remove the nut the rest of the way. Okay, now here I'm going to put a tie rod. It's a tie rod and ball joint removal tool, but obviously I'm using it to do a tie rod right now. And by using this tool, I can ensure that I can just reassemble my tie rod, I won't damage the tie rod by removing it this way. Next, I'm going to remove the stabilizer link, so I'm going to spray the top of it with some penetrating oil and let it sit for a while. Okay, these stabilizer links are sometimes difficult to get apart. You can use hand tools, they will come apart. I just chose to use a impact wrench just to make it easier. I have a 9/16 socket on the bottom and a 14mm socket on the top. Okay, use a hammer and pound down on that bolt, then use a punch, see if you can get it to go down through the sleeve. I end up actually having to use vice grips and a wrench, and obviously you also want to remove the other side so you can move your stabilizer bar around easily.
Okay, what I'm going to do here, put a set of vice grips onto this shaft, somewhat tighter here.
Okay, now we're going to remove the half shaft of the CV axle, and as I said in the beginning of the video, these are the bolts that if you don't have all the tools that I have, it might be easier to just loosen them while the vehicle's on the ground. You can see I use a big large crowbar to hold the hub in place while I'm loosening those bolts. And you can see I spin it, loosen one of the bolts, spin it some more, loosen another bolt. So if you were actually doing this with your vehicle on the ground, you'd have to probably loosen one or two of the bolts, then roll your car a little bit, put it in park, put the emergency brake on, loosen a couple more, and keep repeating that process.
Okay, once it's unbolted, I'll pull it down and off.
Now use a pair of pliers and either break off the ends or just straighten out the cotter pin and pull it out.
Okay, 35mm.
As I said in the beginning, if you don't have impact tools, and this is easier with the tire on and on the ground, your other option would be to have a helper hold the brakes while you remove it.
But what I like to do is give it one tap and just watch it, see if it moves. Okay, actually it moves pretty freely. You can pull your stabilizer bar up and out of the way. Pull your axle down towards the front. Okay, and then push it, lift it up, push it out. Okay, so I've got the vehicle supported under the frame, and then I've got my jack right under the control arm. So you can see there's the bolt for the ball joint, and then there's the jack, and I have a piece of wood on there so I can easily access that ball joint bolt as well as get a puller on there. Okay. Now I can jack it up. You can see without that torsion bar tightened, the suspension travels here very easily.
Now I'm going to use pliers to break off and remove the cotter pin from the lower bolt, and it ends up being kind of a rusty mess. So I actually use a hammer and punch and pretty much just break it away as much as possible so I can get that bolt off.
Okay, now 27mm socket. Put it on there. Use a little hammer. Make sure it goes all the way on. Okay, got a breaker bar on there. I'm actually going to take a piece of pipe, put it on, give me some extra leverage. Okay, and it starts coming loose.
And just one note here, it will help if you take your tie rod and put it back into the steering knuckle and just put the bolt on, and that tie rod will hold things in place while you loosen that ball joint nut. And just speed it up as I change over to my ratchet and take that bolt most of the way off.
Okay, while my bolt's still on there, I'll take my ball joint removal tool. Put it on. It's just doing it this way allows you to break it free without things falling down. Finish removing this bolt. Okay. Jack your control arm up. Pull the steering knuckle down and off.
There's a snap ring that holds the ball joint in place. You can use snap ring pliers. Mine was pretty rusty, so I used a screwdriver and hammer to just kind of pry it off and pop it off.
Okay, now you're going to take a ball joint pulling tool. Put the collar up on there. Okay, this particular press uses a 7/8 socket. I'm putting one on top there. And then just tighten down on the press. I traded my ratchet handle for my breaker bar.
Okay, I'm going to speed it up here. So what I did there was I created a whole lot of pressure by tightening it down. Then I used a hammer, gave it a good whack that kind of broke it free, and then the press just works it the rest of the way out.
There's my old ball joint out.
Okay, a good place as any to end it. Check out part 2 for the reassembly. We hope this helps you out. Brought to you by www.oneauto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet. Please feel free to call us toll-free 888-844-3393. We're the company that's here for you on the internet and in person.